I had the chance before moving to Malaysia to be the general counsel of Nissan refinery. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's the biggest refinery in Vietnam. So, that's still not the good slides. Still not. Okay, there it is. So, I wanted first to introduce you to the project because I think it's an interesting one. It's located not that far away from Hanoi in Bison. I'm sure you know the place better than I do when I arrived. It's a $9 billion project with a significant foreign investment part. Actually, this is the project that has received the biggest foreign investment in Vietnam history. So we're talking about $4 billion. It is by far the biggest refinery of the country with 200,000 barrels per day of crude. It's producing different products, diesel, LPG, jet fuels, and it's a joint venture. It's a joint venture with 4 sponsors, 2 Japanese, Idemitsu, Mitsui, Kuwait Petroleum, and of course, the one that I'm sure I don't have to introduce you is Petro-Vietnam. The joint venture agreement has been signed in 2008, so it's not that recent. And an important milestone for the project was the completion operation date in 2018. If you don't mind, I will focus only on the English slide. So the contract is a tailored FIDIC contract, not 2017, but 1999. It has been signed in 2013 with a joint venture compound of 2 Japanese companies, JGC and Chiyoda, 2 Korean companies, GS and SK, and 1 French company, Technip. And if we go straight to the point, the clause about variation, because this is what we are talking about today, was the following one. I promise, I'm not going to read all the slide, but this one is quite important. So variations may be initiated by the employer at any time prior to issuing the taking over certificate for the works, either by an instruction or by a request for the contractor to submit a proposal. So for those who are aware of FIDIC, you will see that there is one specificity of that NSRP is that there was no engineer. So the relationship was directly between and it still is, between the contractor and the employer. The contractor shall execute and be bound by each variation unless it promptly gives notice stating that, those are the following exceptions, cannot readily obtain the goods, it reduces the safety or the suitability of the works, or it have an adverse impact on the achievement of the schedule of guarantees. So that's very basic clause. We can see that on different projects. The procedure, very quickly. If the employer requests for a proposal, basically the contractor needs to provide 3 things: description of the proposed design, the impact on the program and the time for completion, and the impact on the contract price. Then the employer shall respond by approval, disapproval, or starting discussing, commenting. Again, nothing very unusual until there. So back to my project. Because when we talk about variation, as of today, we have focused a lot about the contract. But in the project, especially a project like NSRP, we have lots of banks. As I said earlier, it's quite a significant project finance, 40 banks, 7 ECAs, and we have MCs as well. So there is a really heavy corporate governance to comply with each time we want to agree on a variation. So the problem with that is seeking this consent could take weeks, if not months, because some of the MC have to go to the board, same for the lenders, sometimes they are not available. So that has created a little bit of frustration at the working level, because the pressure on the working level was to avoid any unnecessary delay, and therefore our lovely engineers have become extremely creative. So what did they do? They have invented 2 concepts. One is called high-level work orders, and another one is called contract changes. The first one is basically a request for variation agreed at working level and deemed to be endorsed later on by the management once the impact on the program and the contract price will be identified. The second one is just an amendment. So I know that this morning we have talked a lot about the differences between what's the difference between a variation and an amendment. So outside Vietnam, my contract was governed by, and is still governed by English law. Outside Vietnam, I think the easiest definition to understand the difference between variation and amendment is that the variation is a change of your scope, and your amendment is a change of your terms and conditions. So, what are the consequences of not respecting what was agreed contractually, the variation procedures, and instead having created those two new concepts of HLWO and CCs? Internally, clearly, we are breaching finance documents because we are not seeking the lender's consent anymore. We are potentially breaching the limits of authorities because we are not seeking the MC consent, despite the fact that the variation value could exceed the authority of management. And we're going to talk about that later on again. By management, who are we talking about? Are we talking about the CEO, or are we talking about the refinery general manager? That's very important. You'll see later on. And the shareholders agreement potentially as well could be breached. Externally, and that's where I wanted to, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. We have a problem about the authority. Can we say that a change that has been signed by someone else than the legal representative, which means in my case, the CEO, is legally binding? It's easy for an SRP to say, yeah, change everything, change. I pay you. Look, I sign. And then I come back and say, well, that's not the legal representative who signed the document, therefore it's not valid. Sorry. Of course, against that position, we have what we call the legal theory of appearance, where the contractor is going to come back and say, well, I'm sorry, but I've invested on your variation. You've instructed me. And then you said that that will be approved later on by management. But then on principle, we agreed that you wanted me to act quick to avoid the project to be delayed. And you agreed as well that whatever will come back in terms of impact on the program or impact on the price will be covered by your management. And now you're telling me, oh yeah, but the guy who signed is just an engineer, he's not the CEO, therefore it's not really binding and we have to reconsider everything. So that's, as you can imagine, this situation could lead the company to multi-million US dollar claims. So that's going to be my last slide, I promise. What I would like you to remember from this experience sharing moment are the following. First, variations and amendments are not the same. So please, lawyers, engineering, QS, whatever you're doing, if you work on a project, don't confuse the two. They are two different concepts with two different legal consequences. Two, you can negotiate even, let's say, let's push it to the extreme. You can negotiate the perfect contract. It will never be enough if you don't implement it properly. Three, being creative while focusing on the short term, because you, especially in the big project like this, what's important is pressure from the government, pressure from the lenders, pressure from the shareholders, pressure from the management. You have some milestones to reach. So sometimes you're like, okay, the contract is like this. It's not the most efficient way. Let's try to find a shortcut. Let's focus on the short term. If you do that, I can assure you, always. I've been working 20 years, not only in Vietnam. I've been working in 10 different countries. It's always the same. You will end up with expensive and disruptive claim in the long term. So one thing to remember, negotiate your contract wisely, and most importantly, stick to it. Thank you very much.